Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. It's a nice sunny one today.
Yeah, it's looking like well, I have a jungle in my front yard, so it's okay. It's now officially whatever season you want to pick.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, and we say this every week, but I can't say it enough. The fans, you guys have been doing it, and you just keep moving that thing down the road, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without you, man. Couldn't do it without you.
And please, when you do, tell your friends, and we ask you, please tell your friends, tell them that you heard it here first.
Absolutely. If you got more than one friend, tell more than one. So, yeah, we really appreciate it. And there are some things that you have definitely heard here first. And maybe that holds true today as well. Yeah. We have a guest that we've had on before. Same person, different company. And we're going to take a pause for the cause, and then we're going to see what kind of what kind of craziness he's getting into at this point, because I've seen some of the stuff he's doing, and it's I don't think I've seen any other amp builder go quite to this depth, including myself. So we're going to take a pause for the cause. We'll be right back with our guest of the week. Used to be of Tone King Amps and now of Bartel Amps, Mr. Mark Bartel.
Hey everybody, this is Rob Scallon. I play guitar for the internet, but sometimes I do podcasts, and right now you're listening to Amps and Axes.
Hi there, this is Matt Wakeling, host of the Guitar Speak podcast, a weekly show produced in Sydney, Australia, interviewing leading guitarists, luthiers and gear builders from Australia and all around the world. We're into all sorts of styles, all sorts of gear, so if you love the guitar, why not look us up on iTunes or Stitcher and join thousands of listeners around the world who tune in to the Guitar Speak podcast.
All right, and we are back as promised with our guest of the week, recurring guest. Same guest, different company. So we'll find out what that's all about. And we're back with Mark Bartel. Mark, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. And hopefully you are too. You're onto some different things or a different thing. Anyway, so last time we had you on, you were you were Tone King Amplifiers. And then you started working with some other people, and there have been some changes. So give us a little past history there.
That's correct. Well, as you know, I've started Tone King almost 25 years ago and continued to operate it through ups and downs. And then about 8 years ago, sold the company to a company called PBG, which was a collection of a bunch of small builders, and stayed on and operated Tone King for the next 8 years with them.
Now, for people that don't know, PBG is Premier Builders Guild, correct?
That's right. Thanks for the clarification.
Oh, no problem.
And PBG, just for business reasons of their own, for one reason or another, operations just came to an end at the end of last year.
Oh.
And so I became parted with Tone King and started my own venture. Tone King, I should mention, is still operating. It's now owned by Boutique Amps Distribution in California, and I'm on good terms with those guys. Everything is super cool. I talk to them here and there, and we got a good relationship going on, and I'm very confident that they're going to carry everything on just the way we had done. They're not making any changes. I'm aware of what they're doing, and they're going to do a good job. Wow.
Well, you're blessed if that is the case. I will tell you firsthand, you are blessed if that is the case. That's the same company that has like Friedman and a couple of other amps that I can't think of off the top of my head, correct?
Yeah, Morgan 65.
Yeah, 65, that was it.
I don't know, a couple others, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Is Cliff still involved with them? Or is he involved with them? Because he was PBG, more or less.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I literally was just talking to Cliff about 5 minutes ago. He called to check in.
Oh, wow.
And, you mean Cliff Coulteri, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't know if he's involved with them or not. Cliff hadn't carried Tone King in a while, but he's interested in looking at my new stuff, and I like the way he collects high-end brands and does a great job representing them. So I'd love to work with him again.
Nice. Well, if you speak to him again, tell him I said hi.
Yeah, will do.
Sure. So you there was the folding of PBG, and I guess the brands went to boutique distributors or whatever that company is.
At the time that PBG closed its doors, they owned 3 brands at that point. They owned Tone King, and they sold that to Boutique Amps Distribution. They owned 2-Rock, which was bought back by the original Tone King owners. And they owned Fano, which was bought by the folks who had been running Fano. And both of those guys are doing great as well. 2-Rock's kind of gone back to their high-end roots, and they're making some really nice-looking stuff. And
did you misstate? You said 2-Rock was bought back by the original owners of Tone King. Did you mean 2-Rock?
Sorry about that. By the original owners of 2-Rock.
Okay.
Too many T words here.
Exactly. But cool, that's good to know that that 2-Rock's gone back to their original founders. That's very cool.
Yeah, because what's really cool is, Max Skinner is the guy who had been operating it all along. He's of course carrying on, but also Bill Crenard, the original designer, has come back. And another guy, Eli Lester, is really awesome player, and great business guy too. So he's in the mix as well, and it's just a real nice little group they got there.
Cool. That's good to hear. And 65 was I forgot who the designer was, but Peter Stroud was involved with 65. Now they're with boutique distributors, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I don't know much about what's going on with the other brands. I'm not really involved at that level.
Yeah. Neither am I. But interesting. I'm glad a couple of those things actually went full circle. That's very cool. So what's going on with your new endeavor, Bartel amps? I saw you post some pretty, I'm going to use out there in the best sense of the word.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you've been experimenting with are, as far as I'm concerned, very unique. So what's your direction this time, if you even know the answer to that question?
Well, just to start off with my ideas from the beginning on what I would do with a new business, I didn't really just want to carry on and make it be Tone King Part 2. I really wanted to explore some of the crazy ideas that I've had over the years, but just they were too impractical to build into a Tone King product, and I wanted to kind of push the boundaries of the high end and see what I could do, see what was the best I could do, and really do some new things. And so I've gone from basically started from scratch and went really deep on research, not in a modern or a high tech kind of way, but deep into research, into materials and circuit design and construction. more in a traditional artisan kind of direction to see if I could come up with a high-end product that really pushes the boundaries and does some cool new things. And that has affected just about every part of this design. The design I'm working on now has absolutely nothing to do with Tone King. It's started from scratch and is built out of all this crazy research that I've been doing. And I mean, I could take it apart and just give you a kind of a quick overview on the types of things I've been doing.
Sure.
I mean, first of all, cabinet design, that's kind of been my obsession for the last 25 years anyway. You know, I learned early on with Tone King when I made my first Imperial, really, that how big of an effect the cabinet can have on the sound. You know, I built up, I prototyped the Imperial in this old Ampeg reverb rocket cabinet and burned out chassis from the dump. And I finished the thing, and it sounded great. And then so I did a nice production layout of a chassis. I built that up. I built a nice looking cabinet. I transferred over all the parts and all in the speaker, and turned it on. It sounded like crap. And I'm like, what's going on here? So that's when I learned that the speaker cabinet can have a great effect. And all those years with Tone King, I've kept kind of refining my skills in designing speaker cabinets and learning. Mm-hmm. And all along, the thing is to develop a really good speaker cabinet, there isn't really a lot of analytical work or math that can be done. It's really experimenting, and that's why it's taken all these decades for me to figure it out. I mean, maybe somebody smarter than me can make it into an equation, but for me, all I'm left with is experimenting, just building test cabinets and trying them scientifically, systematically, and figuring out what things make it sound the way it does. And it's a really long process. You got to burn a lot of sawdust to learn something. And over the years, I've gotten into a lot of dead ends and a lot of red herrings, and a lot of things that you might think off the top of your head will make a cabinet sound a certain way, and eventually prove not to be correct. So
that sounds like McPherson guitars. If you ever look at their guitars, the sound hole is not under the strings. It's actually up near the top bout. And when you read the research on that, the guy who owns that company, I think he made somewhere around 27 different prototypes, moving that sound hole all over the place till it finally was in, the correct area.
Yeah.
And you imagine building acoustic guitars. I mean, those guitars are like $5,000 a piece. Mm-hmm. And you got 20 some of them laying around that are worth $0. Just so you could find out which one sounds the best.
Right.
I know that intimately, and that's what I've been doing for a long time, because one thing that I learned years ago is that just about anything can affect the sound of the type of cabinet that I build, which is kind of a highly resonant cabinet. Mm-hmm. And in fact, even the Tolex and the coating on the inside has an effect. So when I build a test cabinet, it's not just a bang together box. It's a fully finished cabinet that you could, sell to someone. And I build these things up, I listen to them, and most of the time they sound like crap. And then I bring them to the dump. So,
that is a substantial investment, not only monetarily, but much more so in time. You're building something that there's a very good chance you're not going to make $1 on. You're going to spend every dollar that you can on supplies and invest a huge amount of time. And then, like you said, it might wind up in the dump.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's commitment, man. That's commitment. Well, or should be committed. I'm not quite sure which one it is.
Exactly.
Now I have a question, though, real quick, because
Yeah.
I'm on your Facebook page, and I'm looking at these pictures of this baffle. And you have this one that's like kind of pie sliced around this ring. So the ring obviously is for mounting of the speaker, and it looks like you use mahogany, correct?
Yeah,
some of that. Okay,
one of them.
But what is this? Is this Pi design something that you came up with that to add strength, or what is that?
Well, I don't know. Remember the '80s that Japanese star was that?
Oh yeah,
Scorpions
the rising
or something?
sun. The rising sun. Thing?
No, actually, where that came from was this. Well, when I started my own company and decided to go high end, I decided that there are no bounds on what I can do. So it's really impractical to do a solid wood baffle in a production cabinet because it can be mechanically unstable, and so you have to design it a certain way, and that way happens to be really labor intensive to build. But I don't care right now. So I
was going to say that looks like it is 16 pieces, and the angles have to be dead on. You obviously have to join every angle, and that's got to be hours upon hours putting that puzzle together.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was a lot of fun, though, actually. But the whole reason behind it was that I had to come up with a certain arrangement so it was mechanically stable, because pine moves a lot with changes in humidity. So it would just explode the cabinet if you did just a flat piece of glued up pine. You have to come up with a different configuration. So that star pattern was one trial. Another trial was going the opposite way, which is to have the grain run, say, radially, like a circular pattern around. And that way, so those are two different configurations of grain direction, right? And that's why I tried both, and I saw what sounded better. And that was an interesting experiment because I built two cabinets, and the only thing different was in one, the grain went in the horizontal direction, and in the other one, it went in the vertical direction. And which also implied that on the baffle, it had to be 90 degrees rotated as well. It's hard to describe it, but I mean, I think you get the concept.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was that they sounded totally different. The one with the, I don't know what you would call it, axial orientation, the one that you mentioned with the 16 pieces.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. It was super tight feel to it, kind of a glare in the upper mids. And the other one, the one I chose, had the depth that I wanted and a more balanced frequency response, and it just worked better. But not subtle. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people think of a cabinet as just an inert box that should sit there and not screw up the sound coming out of the speaker. But to me, it's an essential part of the sound production, just as important as the speaker. And so that's why I spent all the time doing this stuff.
That's cool,
and
man.
Yeah.
It's, and I think the same way, not that I've gone anywhere near the R&D that you're currently putting in to these new designs. But, I've tried, a lot of different woods, and I've always come back to pine because it becomes part of the sound. It's the most musical wood to my ear. And I've said this many times before, a regular cabinet seems like, okay, it's just a place to put the speakers, and to get some resonance out of them. But in a pine cabinet, it seems like it becomes part of the speaker.
Absolutely. Bingo. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I've tried all different types of woods. And the funny thing is, not just for the cabinet body, but on other elements of the cabinet as well, when I use certain types of woods, they have a certain kind of sonic signature that comes through no matter how in various uses. And you're right. I mean, pine, I found, is my favorite for the type of sound I like. Right. I've tried, of course, different types of plywoods, poplar core, Baltic birch. I've tried solid mahogany, solid maple, red cedar, yellow cedar, oak, and
yeah, and see that brings up a point too. Like, the people for years have been ordering these hardwood cabinets from a company out on the left coast that makes, beautiful hardwood cabinet amps.
Flame maple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just can't pick it up and take it to the gig.
They all sound different. It affects the sound of the amplifier. I don't know if people that are just ordering a beautiful cabinet because it matches their hardwood floors realizes that it affects the sound of the cabinet drastically.
Well, to take that principle over to guitars, when direct mounting pickups became a thing, you can go on Seymour Duncan, DiMarzio, they have like tone charts, right? And it says like, the PAF has this sound. Well, the way they test them, and I talked to Steve Blucher one day from DiMarzio, he said, we use a Les Paul. And he goes, we put all of our humbuckers in a Les Paul, we put all of our single coils in a Strat. And he said, so whatever you do outside of that's going to change the tone. Well, the first time that I built a guitar for my buddy, and we screwed, it was a PAF Pro, into the guitar, he was like, this sounds horrible. And he was like, get it out of here. And it was because it was the vibration.
It was body mounted.
Yeah, the vibration was coming through that it was like, well, now we can't even use what they say on their site. Because the wood was affecting it so much that it just changed the whole dynamic of it completely. And I'm sure putting that speaker on that box that's vibrating like nobody's business, especially at crazy high volume, you're going to hear it.
Oh, yeah. Well, just a quick question. So a standard Les Paul, the pickups are not solidly mounted to the wood?
No, they're on a plastic ring suspended in air. I mean, by two springs.
Are there guitars out there that have the pickups solidly mounted to the wood?
Yeah, so a lot of companies, guys were like requesting that. One, it's a little bit of a cleaner look because it doesn't have a ring. And they were finding out that, by mounting these things into the guitar, that it was actually creating more sustain and you could really hear the wood, Now,
wasn't Eddie one of the first ones to do that?
He was the first guy, because he took a chisel and a hammer to that Strat body, and he made the hole so big, no ring would have ever fit it. And so he was just like, well, I'm just going to screw it to the guitar itself, and that's where it lived.
Just screw the brackets right down into the wood.
You ruin the pickup. Now the guys at FU Tone, they make a brass saddle that screws into the guitar, two little screws in the middle of the pickup, and then you can actually use your pole adjustments to get it just at the right height. Now it does connect it to that brass plate, but it's still got some air there between it. They do it so you don't have to throw away a pickup if you're done with it, because you can't reuse it. I mean, it's garbage at that point. You would only be able to use it solidly because it just
you have to open up the holes in order to get wood screws in big enough to hold it down to the
tears out the threads, and it's garbage at that point.
Right.
So I wonder if that was responsible for some of his tone.
Yeah, that and how he wound it, because he wound it drinking beer with a drill and did it by eyesight and just kind of lucked out. Years later, when Fender, i.e. Charvel, when they took the guitar and made that duplicate one that was like $25,000. Yeah. When they took that pickup and they analyzed it, they were like, we don't even know how it's really working. they were like, we don't want to touch it, we don't want to go near it, but this thing isn't. They were like, it doesn't even look right, to them.
Wow.
But, he did that a lot. There was a lot of Les Pauls that he had that didn't have a neck pickup. And they would tear all the windings off and redo it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Well, did they mount the pickup that way in the reissue guitar?
They got what they did. Yeah, what they did was they got it as close as they could winding wise, and then they dialed in the sound to his liking. But then they screwed that thing right into the wood. They say that those $25,000 ones, there was only like 100 or so made. It was so precise. They used the exact same year quarter, the same exact reflectors from a tractor and trailer that hadn't been made in years. They had to buy them like on eBay.
Yeah.
Down to the cigarette burns on the headstock. And it was so much alike that Eddie had to take Sharpie on the original and go, "This is the original guitar."
Yeah, he couldn't tell them apart. They were that good. Yeah.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like we always say, everything affects everything.
Oh yeah.
And the thing you mentioned about the pickups, I had a similar thing happen with speakers. To come to think of it, which is my original concept with this cabinet was I was going to front load the speakers. I thought I'd get better dispersion that way, and that there would be an advantage to the mechanical connection. The metal rim of the speaker being fastened directly to the wood of the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled like hell to get a good sounding cabinet with speakers that I knew sounded good, and eventually flipped it around and mounted a speaker from the back, and I'm like, there it is. So it seemed like there's something to do with that cardboard ring on the speaker that has a huge effect on the way that speaker sounds. Just a stupid piece of cardboard like that, but a similar thing to the pickups.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the way you could have found that out for sure is to get some speaker surround, put it on the back of the speaker, to remove the metal cone from the box, to put that in there and then mount the speaker that way. But man, who was it years ago? Was it, I forgot, but was it Buzzy Featon? Might have been. He was doing a 212 cabinet years ago with one front loaded and one rear loaded because there's that much difference in the sound.
Yeah, I know. Like all your metal guys, that's why Randall and companies like that, because all their amps are just straight ahead metal.
Yeah,
all their speakers.
They like the front load.
Yeah, they're all front loaded because it's just you get all that woof. You get all that weird woof that those. I don't know. All I know is
it's a little more present too. It's a little more present, almost too much so for me.
Yeah. When I did that, it was like that was what you wanted. Marshalls were kind of darker. They kind of had that darker tone. So yeah, I guess it would be all the high end stuff.
Yeah, that's what it was in the upper mids, real glaring. And I tried this Jensen Alnico that just took your head off mounted that way.
Oh, yeah, I guess at Jensen, Celestians are I'm going to say bad enough for my taste, but a lot of people like that and need that kind of immediacy and that presence. But yeah, a Jensen would compound that even more so. So so all right, now we're into the mounting. We covered the crazy baffle design, and now we're into the mounting. You were doing something that I had seen with mounting rings, correct?
Yeah, that's interesting. The original idea was, like I said, to front load the speaker. But when you front load a speaker, you want to route a kind of a groove for the speaker to sit in. And when your baffle's pretty thin, there's no meat left to attach the speaker to. So I just put a supporting flange on the back of it. And in one test cabinet, I just had some mahogany sitting there, so I grabbed that. And the next one, I grabbed some maple. And I noticed a difference in sound. So I'm like, well, let me try this. So I tried just varying the wood on that flange, and sure enough, it had an effect. I could use it as a tuning feature. So that seemed to have an effect as well. So that's what I'm still kind of working with. I tried pine, maple, mahogany, cherry. I think I like the mahogany best, but I'm still working on that.
Now you are rear loading your speakers now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're actually putting a ring on the baffle that the speaker mounts to, and that's what you're changing the material of at this point.
Exactly. And
wow.
I've tried it both ways. I mean, since I'm rear loading, I don't need that flange. So I did a test cabinet where I just removed it. And I found that it's really necessary for this particular design I'm working on. I'm not saying that every cabinet should have a flange there. It's just that this particular cabinet is relatively thin pine, and it benefits from that flange. It tunes the resonance of the baffle in a really positive way.
That's cool.
Interesting.
And we gotta make sure that all of our listeners understand that when you rear load a speaker, it actually goes in from the back of the cabinet. No, I'm sorry, from the front. Rear load. Yeah, rear load. Front load.
Rear load goes.
Yes,
front load.
It's
it
the
goes in
opposite
from the
of what
front.
you think. Yes. So
no, it's not.
Well, yeah, not in our world, but people would think, oh, front load, it's mounted to the front of the speaker, but it's to the back of the speaker, right?
It's mounted to the front of the baffle.
Yes, that's what it is.
Right, that's a front load. And for a rear load, it's mounted to the rear of the baffle.
Yeah, there you go.
So
now everybody's even more confused. But that's okay.
There you go. No, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
I'm glad I got the terminology right because I was just making it up.
So what was I going to ask you? The okay, we did the cab, the baffle, the ring.
Yeah, a couple other crazy things I might mention. Just before we leave cabinets.
I want to get they don't want to get into the electronics, but okay. Absolutely,
but just if you're interested, the other few things that I've been working on the last few months with these crazy cabinets is the coating on the inside. Well, first of all, the coating on the outside. You know, years ago I built a couple of Tone King amps with hide glue, holding the Tolex down, and I noticed that I liked the way it responded better, but I didn't know how to work with hide glue back then, and it took me hours to get it right, and it still wasn't right. So I decided to try and make that work, and some people helped me out with figuring out how to work that stuff without a $12,000 gluer machine, and I've got a process that works pretty well, and so I've been using hide glue under the Tolex and tweed, and I think that definitely has an effect on the way the cabinet rings in a good way. And so but related to that is the coating on the inside of the cabinet. Now, of course, if the coating on the outside of the cabinet has an effect, then the inside should as well. And just to back up to the hide glue and why this is all speculation, but the reason I think it has an effect is, contact cement never really hardens stiff. It always stays kind of gooey. Mm-hmm. But hide glue dries to a nice stiff coating, and my guess is that has an effect. I hate telling anybody that something is a cause of an effect without knowing for sure, so I'm not going to tell you that's exactly why it is, but it just, from my experimenting, seems to have that effect. It seems to just ring truer. And the coating on the inside is where I put some effort too. And years ago, I just kind of discovered this because I made a run of Tone King cabinets, and some of them sound different than the others. And by process of elimination, I figured out it was the coating thickness of the paint. And so, for years there were a couple of cabinets I did with Tone King where I'd have to do like 3 thick coatings on these surfaces, and then, 1 thin coating on this surface, and did all that kind of stuff. And I, experimented with different types of coatings, latex paint and shellac and polyurethane and various oils. And I decided to kind of take it a little further with my new stuff. Since I tried all the traditional coatings, I thought I'd just get a little crazy with it, and I came up with this coating it's kind of more of a sizing material that it dries very stiff, but it's just got the right kind of I don't know what you would call it, but the right weight to it and the right stiffness, and it really brings out the best in a resonant cabinet like this. And it's really impractical because it's made with rabbit skin glue and a couple other things, and you got to heat it up to 150 degrees and apply it with a brush. You can't spray it on. But it seems to really be an improvement. So that's another crazy thing. Just one final thing is the way the grill cloth is attached. I mean, a lot of my test cabinets, I didn't put grill cloth on because in the early days of forming this company, I was way out in the stratosphere, and the stuff that I thought I was developing is stuff that I'd maybe have one customer a year, and that would be like the Smithsonian or something. But in those tests, I figured that I was going to make a solid wood cabinet with a fine finish and no grill cloth, and totally impractical. So I'm using grill cloth, but I'm attaching it to a separate trim piece and not to the baffle itself, because what I found is that if you tension it properly and staple it rigidly to the baffle board, it applies a compressive force to the baffle, which changes the way it resonates and the way the whole cabinet sounds. So I'm attaching it to the trim piece, attaching the trim piece to the cabinet. It's kind of inconvenient, but I think that has an improvement as well.
Wow, there's almost no stone unturned in this cabinet design at this point. Truly.
It's crazy.
What? Yeah, wow.
I mean,
that's pretty mind-boggling.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, but when you sit back and think about it and listen to the explanation, it makes sense.
And you know, it is a boutique amp, and when you're paying the money that you pay for the boutique amps, and you realize that all this R&D went into it, then you don't feel like, oh, I'm just getting some kind of generic thing that this guy did to sound like this guy, or
right,
one of those deals. So hey, that's pretty neat, man. And
Thanks.
It kind of puts you in that category between crazy and really genius. That
Absolutely.
that line that a lot of guys find, the line that we walk and we go on each side. But when you get it right, it will be, it'll probably be the most unreal sounding thing
else.
Yeah, it's just like, well, now you have an absolute unique sound, and you can't blame it on your equipment because it's doing exactly what you're getting every nuance out of it.
It's doing exactly what your poor fingers tell it to do.
Exactly, man.
So electronics different than the Tone King designs as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely, from the ground up.
Oh man.
And that's both the circuit design and the way things are built. I mean, circuit design, I did some interesting things there too that I might want to mention. I mean, first of all, I'm really more into kind of a traditional vintage style amp. I'm not really into modern stuff, modern construction, modern sounds. I mean, I love classic, vintage guitar sounds like a Plexi or a Tweed Bassman or a Super Reverb, Black Bass Super Reverb. Those are my sounds, but my job is to refine them and elevate them, and come up with something unique to do with those sounds. So, just to start off with, like I said, I'm trending toward simplicity and pure and kind of a purist approach. I want very few controls, but I want to hit all those sounds that I like. So it's a single channel amp. It's only got treble and bass and volume, plus the controls for reverb and trim. But with just volume, treble, and bass, I wanted to hit that whole wide range of sounds. Now, this is kind of been a dream of mine for many years. I mean, going back to when I designed the Imperial, my goal was to design a single channel, the lead channel, that would have a knob to twist from Tweed to Plexi. I failed at that, but I came up with something that was useful anyway, this mid-byte control that kind of modifies the overdrive character. But I wanted to go even further with this one, where I wanted to be able to dial in kind of like a Super Reverb clean sound, and then go a little bit, twist the dials one way to get kind of a nice thick mid kind of Tweed Bassman kind of sound, and then keep going further and get more of a Plexi grind out of it. And I did it. It wasn't easy. It takes some crazy parts that I had to have custom ordered, but it works. It's really kind of unique the way that works. And here's how it works. And you turn bass and treble all the way up. And first of all, they work like bass and treble controls. You get more bass and more treble. But at that position, which on a normal amp is unusable, way too much bass, way too much treble, that position is specifically voiced for that particular type of clean sound I want. It's voiced to sound like the perfect setting on a Twin or a Super Reverb for a nice, transparent, clean sound. As you dial them back, you dial treble and bass back to noon, and at noon, it's more of a neutral frequency response, essentially, but not really neutral. It's tuned to sound like a Tweed Bassman. You dial the bass, but in addition to that, you also get more gain and less headroom, which is kind of what you want. A little bit counterintuitive because you're going backwards with these controls, but you're getting more gain and headroom. But it's just because that's what's needed for that voicing. Turn treble and bass all the way down. Obviously, you're going to get more mids, but that's tuned for more of a kind of early plexi sound, and way more gain, way less headroom. And so it covers that whole range. And not only that, but by altering the relationship of the bass and treble controls, you can kind of mix in between there. You can get halfway between this and that, which is what I've always wanted to do. And it works really cool. It's it doesn't take a lot of mojo switches and this and that to get a whole bunch of tones. I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. The only other thing of note is from the beginning. I mean, for a long time, I always wanted to screw around with using an interstage transformer loaded phase inverter. Something a little different. Like an old radio from the 30s or 40s, or there were a couple of guitar amps that used an interstage transformer, and the reason was just that it keeps it symmetrical. As it's getting clamped hard from the output tubes, it's staying symmetrical, and I just thought that might have some benefit, and sure enough, it does. And well, another thing you do is you eliminate the AC coupling between the phase inverter and the output tube, so it's not going to, your bias isn't going to vary as you hit it hard and it starts to rectify. So, you get rid of the sag, but it also just has a really nice kind of consonant distortion that gets rid of that hashy stuff that happens. Like if you take a twin or something and it's on the edge of breakup and you get all that ratty, edgy breakup. Yeah. It's kind of halfway between broken up and clean. That stuff always bothered me. And by using the interstage transformer, it kind of gets rid of that because the onset of clipping is so smooth. And a side effect of using the interstage transformer was I got thinking, well, maybe I could make a really good post-phase inverter master because, this maybe the transformer will keep it symmetrical and things will sound good. And sure enough, that worked too. And particularly how it worked was I had them design this a custom transformer, and I had them design it so it starts to saturate just above the level where the output tubes normally clamp the signal. So you're getting a clamping effect naturally from the saturation of that interstage transformer, and that really adds to the way the overdrive sound is. Normally a post-phase inverter master can sometimes get a little thin and feel more like lose sustain.
Right, and it feels a little artificial.
Yeah, and this really, really helps keep it feeling good. It feels really natural, and that's what I was thinking yesterday. I was goofing around. I was thinking, I really need a name for this, because everybody's got the name for their master volume circuit. I don't really have one. All I say is it's a good master volume. But then I was thinking, it's really got this natural feel to it. Maybe I'll call it the supernatural master. Would that be too much?
There you go. I like that. But, Carlos will probably, give you a cease and desist or something.
Oh, that's right.
Because we know that happens in the business.
Maybe not Carlos, but the guy he works closely with.
Yes.
He's notorious for that, Jeff.
Well, it was his idea for all the duets.
Yeah, I invented the shovel too.
Yeah. Oh, that guy.
Yeah, okay. That guy, not the guitar guy.
No, I thought you were speaking of Clive Davis.
Oh, no. I'm talking about the guy that makes his amps.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
You shan't go there. So, yeah, wow, that is pretty cool. And I was looking at a post that you put up a while back. You were, and I don't even know if you are using these or you just did it because you just wanted to go over the top, but you had a picture of these wire posts that you had made.
Yeah, it's
that
cool.
The wires actually thread through, instead of like laying on the chassis, these are mounted to the chassis, and then the wire threads through them.
Yep. I'm actually using those in production. Well, I will when I get to production. But yeah, I just have this thing about, you know how it is. For years, I struggled with rattling of wires and components against the chassis in a combo amp. So I used to use a lot of cable clamps to tie stuff down and put wires up off the chassis. And, it turned into a situation where I really liked tidying up the wires that way, and I just wanted to take it a little further with this new design and make those little wire trees so I could lay out the wiring along with laying out everything else and have everything right in its place. And those were actually not very difficult to make. And what I found, I just drew them up on some freeware 3D CAD software, and I put my little logo on top. That was pretty easy to do. I had a sample made, and then I cast them for the prototype. I cast them out of urethane, which is a horrible process. It took hours and hours to make enough to build one amp. So trying to figure out how to have those made in a practical way, probably injection molded without having to pay a fortune. But, all custom stuff like that's never cheap.
No, not at all.
Especially if the numbers are low,
Right,
yeah.
Right.
But I'm definitely committed to doing it. I'm working on my second chassis layout today, and I'm relying heavily on those things to keep stuff neat and tidy.
Wow. Yeah, I just thought it was, not that everything else hasn't been over the top already, but I just thought it was so over the top that you actually have your little logo on the top of these trees. Like, oh my God, really?
I know, it's kind of vanity, but it was surprisingly easy to do. Anybody could do this with the right software, and might as well, go that extra vanity step.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I'm thinking, okay, you said it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that hard to do. Like, yeah, it's probably way easier to design this than to get them manufactured in quantities less than 1 million,
Yeah, wow. They're not going to be cheap. And it may end up that I have to cast them myself for a time until it's practical to buy them in those kind of quantities.
You're like a woodworker. You do all the stuff with the electronics inside, and now you're a metallurgist. Is that what we're?
No, he's a plasticologist.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. I thought you were actually going to cast those posts. I'm like, my God.
Well, yeah, out of plastic.
Out of plastic.
Out of urethane.
Okay. Yeah, out of urethane. Yeah.
Well, I figured I was doing them one at a time. And that takes a long time. If I can get a mold, I'll just have him make a mold so I can do, the 13 at a time that I need for one amp. In one pour, they'll be done, and I won't have to. It is actually really cool. Being able to go from doing electronics to doing woodworking to doing plastic molding and stuff. It's never boring.
A lot of hats,
and that's
man.
Kind of stuff I love to do. When I was. When I was working with Tone King, it was a larger scale business, and I spent more of my time doing other things, a lot of paperwork and stuff, and occasionally I'd get a chance to do a custom amp, and I'd feel like I was in heaven, I got to spend the whole day in the shop just building an amplifier. Man, this is what I want to do when I retire. Luckily, I got forced into retirement fast.
Faster than you thought.
Right.
Well, that's cool, man.
Now you just have to figure out how to make retirement pay off. But there is no stone left unturned. There is no detail left unattended on this. I saw some of the posts that Mark was putting up, and I said, we got to get him back on the show just so that he could describe in his own words what he's doing and why, because it's so unique and it's so intensive and it's so inclusive. And it's like these are aspects that I would assume most other builders, including myself, have not had the luxury of time to be able to experiment all the way through to the degree that Mark is doing this. So a lot of this might have gone over people's heads, but what you have to understand is that this research is like more intense than anybody else that I know that has been doing it in this field. It's tenfold.
Oh yeah,
the degree of experimentation that he's putting into these amps, man. So, I wish you all the best, Mark. It's
well, thank you, Jeff.
And it's obviously it's fun for you. I can hear it in your voice. It's fun. It's fun again, And man, we don't know how long we're here. If work can be fun, it should be.
You've done that thing. You've gone to this next level that nobody really has ever done. To think about the baffle in that sense is pretty crazy, man. And to go through all those prototypes, that's something to be said. I think that's where it is, Jeff, is that, you have to know how to build it first, but then you have to have the patience and, a little bit of capital to not to, building with pine is the most expensive thing, but to go through those steps and to take it and throw it into a landfill if it doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
I mean, essentially, it's what he was doing.
Absolutely, and see, Mark has the blessing of being a decent woodworker, obviously a very good woodworker. Because think if every one of these ideas you had to pay somebody else to do from start to finish, those one-offs get really, really expensive because it's a lot of time, it's a lot of labor. It's much more expensed in labor than it is in supplies.
Sure.
So he has the luxury of being this incredible woodworker. Man, me, if it's not a 2x4, I step back. I'd love to apprentice with him just to learn how to work with wood someday when I actually had the time and the luxury that he has somehow found a way to do now. So
that's awesome.
Good on you, Mark. If you're able to do it, do it.
Yeah. And I have a question for Mark. Mark, what kind of table saw do you have?
Powermatic 66.
Yeah. Bisomer fence, or what kind of fence do you have?
Exactly.
Yeah. There.
Love it.
There you go. You can put a gnat's ass on that thing and get it dialed in.
Rock solid. Love that saw.
And what kind of joint? I mean, you have some serious woodworking equipment if you're running that thing. So what do you have for like a joiner? Is it another Powermatic or?
Nah, the Powermatic is my only really good machine. My other machinery is kind of just junk that's on its way out that needs to be replaced. I need to get a good planer soon because I'm going to be using it all the time. Yeah. But I really never had the occasion to use a lot of these tools besides the table saw. But now it's got to be a full-fledged, real working cabinet shop, and got to gear up.
Well, the table saw is the most important piece of that, honestly, because, if you can't cut something straight, then it's not a box anymore. It's,
right.
just another piece of weird art.
Well, that's when you go into making one-off trapezoids.
Yeah.
And so what is that? Is that run on 220?
Yep, 220, and I barely got enough power in my little shop. Half the time I blow the circuit breaker just running the table saw.
Oh my God! Yeah, I know not of what you guys speak when it comes to that. It's a circular saw and a 2x4 for me. I'm good with decks.
Well, Jesus. When it comes to the, if you buy like the high end table saws, those third party fences, that's where the real rubber meets the road. You need a blade that's true, and then that fence is if you spend like what do those things run now, Mark? Are they like a couple $100, $300, something like that, $400?
I don't know, but every penny you put into a good fence is going to be well worth it.
Absolutely. And just a little bit that I did, it was like I had just a standard Delta contractor type saw. It was 30 inches, but I paid the money for a Bisomer, and I was like, oh, look, everything goes together so much easier.
I know. And it's amazing that thing just stays rock solid. I haven't adjusted it in like 10 years, and it's perfect.
And you can push it. You can push against it, to make sure that your cuts are true. And I know we're getting into woodworking talk, but it is it's a big thing, man. And, that's the only way you're going to make those awesome cabinets, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and over the years of doing cabinet work, you find ways of sequencing your work to do things accurately too. It's the experience too helps.
You probably got tons of jigs and everything else, right?
Yeah. And the router table is the real thing where a lot of that happens. And got to.
Yeah, I see the next piece of gear for Mark as being a tiny little lathe, so he can lathe those wire trees one at a time, all by himself.
Oh, they got let me tell you, they got pen lathes, man. They got little tabletop lathes. You can get down to some real minute. You can make toothpicks.
Well, you want to know what's crazy is before I came up with the idea of molding those things out of urethane, the original idea was to make them out of porcelain. Whoa. But I couldn't find anybody in town to fire the porcelain for me.
Wow.
Crap.
Would that be cool? You know how like those old standoffs that you see, the porcelain ones?
On telephone poles back in the day, they used to have them for all the high voltage wires running on them.
For the resistance,
yeah.
And kids used to shoot them out.
Blazed.
Yeah, oh my God, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I figured those are really one at a time, handmade. There's no way you could automate that process. And if I have to make 15, 20 little porcelain objects, glaze them, fire them,
I can see it now. It'd be like, so how much does the amp cost? It sounds really good. Well, it's $12,000.
Absolutely. Well, we're up into Dumble world now, and at this point, Mark, you got to scrap the whole idea of a pine cabinet because there's so much detail here. You're going to have to make it out of plexiglass just so people can see every little bit in there. Or put a window in the top that opens up so they can see it.
I mean, it'd be like, well, we put these little porcelain pieces, and people would be like, what?
Right. I don't care. I can't see it. I don't care.
Could you imagine? But here's the upside of that. You see, and I know you two know this. If you did do it and you put a $12,000 price tag on, you'd have a year's worth of orders the next day.
I don't know.
We should all hope.
Yeah.
We should all hope. Well, Mark, I know this interview was kind of last minute for you because we had a screw up in scheduling and everything, but thanks for taking the time. And I really, once I started seeing those posts, I went, we got to get him back on because this is above and beyond any R&D that I've seen anybody else do. So, we got to get the mad scientist on and figure out what the hell's going on.
There we go.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I know it seems crazy, but I mean, really, it's just a lot of these ideas that I had to get out of my system. And it's been like a vacation for me. I've been, 5 months of unpaid vacation doing all this stuff.
Well, crazy, it's a relative term, so it's okay.
It is.
Yeah. When it comes to tone, it really isn't crazy.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, man, best of luck with it.
Thanks.
Everything will be up on the site too. All the links to the Facebook, and looks like you have a Twitter page and everything. So that'll all go on the show, and that will live in where?
Perpetuity.
That's right.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mark, thank you again. Have a great rest of the day and much continued success, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. Let's keep in touch.
And there you have the story.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that nobody thought I was calling him crazy. It's just,
no.
It's just that thing. When you have that passion,
it's crazy in a mad scientist kind of way.
Exactly. Some people,
and that's a good thing.
You got guys that, let's just use carpenters, right? Carpenters look at wood and they go, well, if it's within an 1/8 inch, we're good to go. Mm-hmm. But then if you look at a guy who's building a Swiss watch, it's like, no. Everything has to be exact. So that's, he's taken it to this level. Basically, I guess what I would probably say is just for his own satisfaction.
Yeah.
To know that he could do this thing, and now
and to know what happens, and to know what happens when you do it.
Yeah, and now the benefit is that everybody else gets to enjoy it.
True.
If you want what he's doing, well, he's going to make it for you, and you're going to have something that's going to be very unique. That's
for sure.
Yeah.
It's absolutely for sure. It's it should, from everything that he's gone through, the way he's presented it, it should be a thing unto itself.
Yeah, I would think
really
so.
should. It really should.
And unlike our good buddy Alex Saraceno, who made the Dirty Boy amplifier, which he really went to like this other planet and just redesigned how the whole thing worked.
Right.
It was more than just a variac. It was actually other stuff. It was impractical to make. It was so expensive and so much work that to pass that to pass that over to the customer,
pass the cost on,
it was unheard of, and it failed for that reason. It just could not get off the ground for that reason. But Mark's thing is not in that capacity. He's taking the things that you guys know works, and he's just redesigning it to work in even a better fashion. Is that an easy way to say that?
I guess. I mean, what he is doing, both electronically, and physically with the cabinet and everything, it's very laborious. And make no mistake, at least as far as I would be willing to say, that this is never going to get to the point of being your typical production amp that's going to be what people consider affordable, or what most guitar players would want to see as affordable. This is for people that want something that most other people don't have. That's his market. He specifically said high end, and that's exactly what this is going to be.
I mean, Alex Saraceno's thing was even the manufacturer couldn't make it.
Right.
They were like, well, we would be making $0 on this thing. But, he'll charge accordingly, but it'll be worth every penny of that to capture that unique sound. And you're going to get something that's made by one guy, basically.
Yeah.
And that's,
and made in the U.S.
Yeah. And
top to bottom.
Very unheard of these days. Usually there's got to be something else. I mean, granted, he's not making his own transformers, and the parts inside of it have to come from somewhere else, but you see what he's doing. He's making a lot of the stuff in there. So that's pretty crazy, man.
I don't know, man. I don't know that Transformers are too far behind. I think he's going to find some way to wind his own Transformers.
He's definitely a Renaissance guy,
Absolutely.
He'll be out there. He'll be out there with a. He'll be out there with a like a blacksmith with burning coal, making his own metal.
Yeah, right. Wow,
that'd be interesting.
I mean, we're having a little bit of fun, but hopefully at no expense to him, because no. It's just it's not one step above and beyond. It's quite a few steps above and beyond what anybody else I know has done to this point. So he's looking into things that a lot of us haven't had the opportunity, and the luxury to look into. So good on you, Mark.
Yeah, man.
Good on you. Yeah. Good on.
So until next time, my friend.
That's right, because you never know what other kind of genius we're going to have on.
I'm Mick Marcelino.
And I'm Jeff Bober.
And we're always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.